Welcome back to Get Your House in Order, the podcast where we get real about building life and legacy with intention. Today's guest is Josh Cadillac, a real estate expert, speaker, and educator who's built a reputation for helping people close deals with competence, character, and clarity. With rising mortgage rates, housing affordability concerns, and a general sense of uncertainty dominating both in the US and Canadian markets, this episode couldn't come at a better time. We're not just talking about real estate. We're talking about building stability, making smart choices in turbulent times, and getting your own house in order. So in every sense of the word, let's get into it. Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hanging out with you, Elke. It couldn't be a better way to spend my time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, welcome, and thanks for making the time. Let's dive into it quickly because we know it's a busy time and the markets are really, really loud. Tell me, in your market and what you see around your people, with high mortgage rates persisting in the US and buyer hesitancy also mounting in places like Toronto, how do you help your clients and yourself stay grounded and focused on long-term value rather than market noise?
Well, I think that there is always the mistake that people want to make to try to time the market, and they focus myopically on that rather than looking at what their alternative is. So most people, the alternative to being long in real estate is staying long in cash. And if I ask you, hey, how do you like the outlook for cash going forward? Well, all the inflation, cash has been getting killed left, right, and sideways. So unless you're going to have the money allocated someplace else, okay, where's that someplace else going to be? Because when it's just, should I buy real estate or not? It's not really the full question. The full question is, should I reduce my position in something else to get into real estate? And you could see and as of when we're recording this, the volatility in the stock market's been insane. What's happened to real estate prices? Nothing. They've just because that's what happened when COVID hit. They just kind of keep trucking along. It's not a fast moving market. It's not a super emotional market. So in turbulent times, you want to be in that flight to quality product. And what I think that you're also going to see is as capital runs from securities, you'll also see real estate do particularly well because it is seen as that flight to quality, especially in an environment where bonds are probably not going to do as well because of interest rate concerns.
And I do find that sometimes people see real estate as a timing the market situation, and nothing could be further from the truth. This is a patience game. This is why are you buying it? Because if it's to flip it, it might not work for your family. And following the advice that your buddy gave you might not work.
Sure.
How in this market that is so turbulent, where people are stretched thin by inflation and housing affordability, how do you maintain trust when the numbers don't always line up with the client's interest or dreams?
Because I tell them immediately not to buy if it's not the right time to buy. Right now, there are products in my market that I tell the customer to stay away from. I tell them I need a year and a half, 2 years before that's the right product to be looking at because that product is underperforming. I have a policy that I go through all the options with my customer that don't make me money first before I bring up the first one that would make me money as a real estate agent. I want them to know that I look out for them first because I don't want this deal. I want every deal they're ever going to do. And the way I get those deals is by the way I handle this opportunity right here. And so saying no is one of my favorite things to say. If I don't think it's good, if I wouldn't do it with my money, I'm going to tell them, look, guys, I don't like it right now. I think there's a better opportunity, but it's later. It's something else. It's someplace else. It's a different product. Maybe it's a product I don't participate in. Maybe it's a refi and they just get some cash out that way. I don't get paid on a refi. But they still have the property. They still have the income potential. They have the benefit that the real estate gives them and the tax advantages over time. So that's but that's my overall policy in general, Elke, is to just try to take good care of my people. Because frankly, I don't like to have to go out and advertise to get new ones.
Yeah, and if you call this number, you get 222.99, 100%. And so affordability is an issue. And inventory might be up in the US, Canada, you're starting to see it, but it's not fast enough for the need we have. People want to buy, but then they emotionally buy. What does getting your financial house in order look like for the average buyer today?
I think that the average buyer really needs to have their head wrapped around the idea of differential cash flow, which is something that we don't usually teach, but it's something I always show customers when I work with them. I think good agents should do that because we have the type of asset in real estate that's not a day traded asset, right? So when you buy a house from me, as a residential buyer, it's an emotional decision because the agent lets it be. I want to take and have some time with you to inject some rationality into that as to how this house as an asset is going to help you get closer to retirement, get your kids closer to going to college. It is a major piece. In the US, I saw a statistic the other day, the average net worth of an individual that's a renter in the United States of America runs around $11,000. That number for a homeowner is nearly $400,000. So the simple, basic economic choice of where we live and how we choose to live makes a huge difference as to the net worth that we achieve throughout the course of our life. So I recognize that a customer's house may be, as a renter, they think in good financial order. But I also realize that rent is a continually increasing expense, whereas that 30-year fixed mortgage that we have, I know in Canada, you guys have an inflationary adjustment on your mortgages. We don't. So the bank, you got to love this, Elke. The bank today tells me a certain number of dollars I got to pay them. And for the next 360 months, I give them the same number of dollars, regardless of the value of the money, which means my wages are going up. As if you look at any chart, wages go up with time, never enough to keep pace with inflation, but my wages are going up and the bank's getting stuck with the same number of dollars. This is the reason why in an inflationary market in particular, Elke, what you always are going to see, and I'm sure you know this, is the differential between standard of living between renters and owners starts to broaden because the renter has 100% of their living expenses affected by inflation. And that inflation always tends to go up faster than what wages do, right? So 100% of all their expenses are going up at, let's say, 5% a year, to pick a number, right? Whereas my homeowner, a third of their income is tied to their housing expense with principal interest on their mortgage. Well, that number stays the same. So it's only the other 2/3 of their cost of living that actually goes up. What they save in this bottom third, this housing expense not going up in price, they can allocate to cover the differential between their wage growth and their income growth. And that's the reason why we see homeowners doing so well. So kind of to answer your question, what do you say to people that feel like they're frozen out of the market? They have to make the desperate decision. What are you willing to give up on to get in the market? Because it's probably only going to get worse. The gap between income and the cost of home ownership is just continuing to widen. And I'm glad we're going to talk about later on at some point government interference in this thing, because the government has been a major player in making homes less affordable.
100%. And you know what? I mean, obviously the way you use a mortgage in the US is very different from how they work in Canada. But
Sure.
at the end of the day, it's a supply and demand situation. In Canada, we have the issue that we have massive immigration, and more so in the last 10 years, or call it 5 years, there are more people here than we can house. And it's not just the house, it's the infrastructure and education and healthcare and so on. So there's a lot of stress there. And for residential property or your primary home, your interest paid is not tax deductible like it is and I think in most states in the US, right? So it's a very different ballgame. But at the end of the day, the rising costs are not at the same speed, or put it this way, the affordability does not keep up with rising costs. But
Sure.
here's the thing. I'm a big believer that people need to own their situations and stop listening to their golf buddies' advice. They need to sit down and say, okay, these are the mistakes. This is what I have. This is what I don't have. This is how I spend my money. This is what's important to me. Have the conversation with the family and say, do we own? Do we rent? I mean, in a way, renting is not horrendous when you think about how you're going to use capital otherwise. But if you're really just wasting money renting, that's not the best use of capital, unless you're really good with capital markets and making money there. I think ownership is a wonderful thing and what people generally aspire to. But then you have this special breed of people that are sitting on the sidelines. They don't know if they should buy. They don't know if they should sell. Have you yourself had one of those moments in your life where indecision cost you more than taking a calculated risk?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just recently, I knew I should have liquidated my entire stock portfolio so that I could be rebuying right now. I knew it. I mean, I knew that the capital markets were going to react to this. And 2 or 3 weeks ago, I totally, like, I had the thought, you should just take and dump whatever stock you have, come back in. Cause I knew it was going to be bad. I mean, the handwriting was on the wall, but laziness. And let me be honest with you also, Elke, it's not my jam. Real estate's my jam. So the stock market is where I go. I don't want to say my racetrack money. I mean, I make calculated bets on companies that I believe in, but crypto is my racetrack money. The stock market is kind of like my less certain, 10% of what I do, I put there. The rest for me is largely going to be real estate, because that's the place where I have the greatest leverage benefit. I have the greatest understanding of what it is that I'm doing. I think that your thing before that you mentioned about the idea of the reallocation of capital, you have to look at, if you buy a home versus renting and using that capital to do something else with, exactly how much capital you have to work with, and exactly what that's going to do for you, and how that's going to offset what is going to be rents that continues. I mean, you can't look at a chart of what rents have done. I don't care, pretty much anywhere in the world over the last 50 years. And there's certain places in the world where things have gone downhill, but in stable first world countries like we're in, those rents, it's like a roller coaster at the beginning. Click, 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 click. It just keeps ticking away on its way up. So your cost of ownership is never going to be as certain. And there's always this balancing point. And I call it the gray hair factor of who walks in my door, right? If we're talking about like bald with the white tufts around the side, the amount of leverage we're talking about goes way down. Them borrowing against their house goes out the window. Like, there's a whole bunch of risk that I am not comfortable recommending. But if you're talking about people that are on the way in, figuring out how they're going to set life up well, the accumulation of income generating assets is going to be the best place to be. I think the biggest lie that's been perpetrated in the US in particular, but I'm assuming, considering how close that border really is, you guys get it too, which is that if you live within your means, you're going to get ahead. And it's a lie. You got to live below your means, allocate as much as you can to invest. That's the only path to get in any place, right? So when the mandatoriness, the idea that, look, I've got to do this. When I wrote the book, The Roadmap to the American Dream, that's literally what it was about. Look, if you want to get the American dream, you got to find ways to allocate capital to invest. And that means going without today. It means not going on that second vacation or the first vacation. It means, for me, for a while, it meant renting out a room in my house. I rented out a bedroom in my house. It was sitting there doing nothing. It was far beneath my social station to do that. But so I think that in a world where people are indecisive, they need to take and isolate what the goal is. If the goal is to achieve wealth and sustain a lifestyle going forward, they need to get on the right side of the equation, which means if you own the property and it's being rented, you're the one whose rents are going up to maintain your standard of living. If you're the one renting, you're the one paying that. And so the simplest analogy I could give you on this, Elke, was when I was a kid. I used to go to the arcade. My father used to say to me, son, don't be a sucker. You don't want to be the guy putting the money in the machine. You want to be the guy taking the money out of the machine. When you're the landlord, you're the one taking the money out of the machine. You're the one on the right side of inflation. I know, because my portfolio, all of my properties are worth significantly more than they were. All of my rents are significantly higher than. What did I do to do that? Nothing. I bought them. That was it.
But I hear you, and I think I couldn't agree with you more. I think the death of wealth is keeping up with the Joneses. When your lifestyle is growing, and usually it's above par than your income generating ability, that's a non-starter. The other thing too is, to be honest, at least it's an inherited wealth. The average homeowner might get to 1, 2, or 3 properties. If you're able to keep your standard of living below what you could afford, and at the beginning you're going to be paying interest, and you're going to be paying the mortgages, and then you're going to be trying to build equity and capital into your portfolio. It takes time. It takes discipline. But I think in addition to time and discipline, what it takes is real ownership of your behavior, is keeping all the pieces together. Be tax efficient, be responsible, really track your spending, talk to your family about it, explain the sacrifices that you might be making today for tomorrow, show the curve. And generally speaking, you're educating the next generation to be proper stewards of wealth. You're not going to become Warren Buffett overnight. And the average American or Canadian, let's say they get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 houses. At the end of the day, these are not billionaires. We're talking about the average human being, right? But it's a nice standard of living that if you put up with all the risks that go with ownership and market fluctuations and interest rates going up and tax changes and presidents change or prime ministers change, and now we tax more, now we tax less, now we don't tax anyone, now we tax everyone. If you don't own that behavior, you're spinning your wheels.
Of course.
And at that point, my peeve is you can't blame anyone else but yourself.
Of course.
And that's where surrounding yourself with the right advice is what counts. So you lead with education. How do you keep people's expectations in check, both clients and professionals, when things aren't moving fast enough for them?
Well, I think that it's setting the expectations up front. So there's a simple model that I follow that I teach. Elke, I think it's what great businesses do. And the model is anticipate. I anticipate the customer well. Like, what could I expect them to be like? Well, they want to keep up with the Joneses. They want to make more. They want to do it in less time. There's certain expectations that I can have. The second piece of this to do this well is empathy. If I was in their place, how would I feel? Well, I'd feel this way. Well, if I was in their place, what would I need to say or do to speak to this person here? And that brings me to the third place, which is pre-negotiate. I proactively, before they really even get a chance to talk, explain to them the environment they're going into and what the expectations need to be. And I'm comfortable talking about the alternative allocations of capital. I'm comfortable talking about securities, bonds, whatever else they want to talk about. Like, where do you want to take and plug your money in? Because at the end of the day, there's two things we could do with the money. We could invest it or we could spend it, right? That's it. Consumption or investment. Those are the two possible allocations of any scarce resource, both your time and your money being. So I look at it this way. Our $100 bills got Benjamin Franklin on it. I imagine that my Benjamins are sitting there at the pool with an umbrella drink, sipping away on his little chubby belly there, sipping away, while I'm out there slaving. My folks that get it right understand they got to kick Chubby Ben off the chaise lounge there and get him out there working as well. Now, the question is, if we're going to put Ben to work, we want to put Ben to work in the most effective way we possibly can without risking Ben. We don't want to lose the money, but we want to get the money. If we're going to take and go through the brain damage of figuring out where to put it, we want to put it someplace where it's going to be effective. So that's where the tangibility of real estate, the income production potential. In the U.S., we have a lot of tax advantages, the depreciation that we get, the mortgage interest being taxed. There's so many good things that come, and we start to apply leverage. You start to apply leverage and you use a differential cash flow. Well, now this property that's a 6% cap rate or a 5% cap rate is rocking closer to 12 on an annualized rate of return on a 10-year hold. Well, if I'm making 12% annualized, I don't know if you ever looked at it, what happens to money at a 12% rate over 10, 20, 30 years. It's a really nice thing, right? So when they see those numbers, it gets easier for them to understand where we're going, then making the case that they have to buy in to having the future that they want. If you want it, I can help you get it, but I can't do it for you. So you're going to have to get buy-in from the tribe, buy-in from the family. You got to figure out ways to give the incentives, because like the whole life of living as a monk, we will go on vacation in 2060. Like, you know, that you can't get either. I mean, I'm so blessed. The other day, my stepdaughter comes to me. I said to her, where in the world would you like to go? She says, I'd like to go to Japan, because she thought it would never happen. I said, all right, I'll put it on the books for next year. Now, this is what you're going to do to help the family to get us to Japan, because everybody in the family, we all pull together. We're all pulling in the same direction. We're chasing the same goal. So for me, that's kind of, if you boots in the ground, how I handle it in my household. That's what I do. I get everybody on the same page. This is where we're going. This is what we got to do to get here. Now, when she gets on that plane to go to Japan, she'll see the fruits of her labor. And that's what I want. I want that reward to be there.
But you're leading by example, and you're talking about the situation, and honestly, that it's a lot easier to get their buy-in. But we're also going through a very interesting time, and I mean, obviously, whatever happens to the U.S. rattles Canada 3 times more, right? Massive change, gone from one side of the swing to the entirely opposite. There's growing frustration across the board about how policy affects housing. So whether it's interest rates, lack of supply, immigration, no immigration, deportation, whatever political party that's in place, what's your take on the role that government should play in residential real estate? And where do you think it's helping or hurting the most right now?
I cannot think of one place where the government is helping at all. I can think of a lot of places where they're fighting for home affordability while simultaneously sabotaging home affordability. Zoning restrictions are insane. I mean, you literally drive by huge swaths, places desperate for housing, huge swaths of land. You can't build there. The purple crested insect, whatever, that's their native habitat. Yeah, you got it. And so as a builder, I'm also a general contractor, builder, developer. I can tell you a few things off the top. Since COVID, the supply chain has never been fixed. They've never gotten it working the way that it was. Stuff that I used to have on a 1-2 week lead time, they'll still tell me 2 weeks. It takes 14 weeks for it to come in. And if it was isolated, I wouldn't care. But you got to understand, as a builder, I'm now borrowing money at a higher interest rate than I was, because my interest rates in the US are tied to prime. So while the 10-year is affecting our mortgage, which is down, which is nice, I only get a break on my interest rates when the Fed actually lowers their rates, which has only happened a couple of times. So I'm still paying 9 to 11% for construction paper. Now I've got long delays on my materials. Well, if that's a kitchen, I need that kitchen to finish out that build. And I needed the cash flow from that to fund 4 other projects that are down the line that in process, all the while paying 11% on all 5 houses. I mean, it's brutal. And all of that cost, if you understand basic economics, I mean, I know there's a lot of people that it should work like this. If you understand basic economics, I don't have a choice whether or not I make a profit. If I don't make a profit, I'm out of business, right? So what do I immediately have to do? I immediately have to raise the cost of building that home. Simultaneously with that, we have labor is up. We have let the world's supply of basic minerals be controlled by other countries around the world. All of us are suffering from things like copper. Copper is, I think it's something like 80% of the world's copper supply is owned by the Chinese. I don't know what, if you have Home Depot and what your Home Depots are like there, Elke. My Home Depot, I have no idea what the wire did, but that wire is now incarcerated. All the wire, the electrical wire is behind bars. And it's behind bars because it's 3 or 4 times as much as it was. People are stealing little pieces of it because it's so expensive for that copper. So between that and then, as I was alluding to, the biggest place that the government has really stepped in and made homes less affordable, besides the zoning issues and the individual municipalities being impossible to work with. Since COVID, their timelines have skyrocketed for review. Weeks, months to get a set of plans back just with their comments for like a simple renovation, like nuts. But we also get an energy efficiency
Gosh, I have to say, I have to interrupt you because in Canada, in Toronto, it's 2 to 3 years.
Oh, sure. Because here's the thing. And this is what I really love. And by love, it makes me so irritated. Governments rail against monopolies, yet function as their own. Like if it was any other business, what would you do? You know what? I'm taking my plans to the other city next to you, but you can't. Like there's no other, they've got you over a barrel. They know it. And it's like they're doing you a favor. And so between that, and as I was saying, the energy efficiency guide, Elke, the energy efficiency guide comes out and tells me you have to use now these types of materials. Well, every single time it makes the exact same home more expensive to build. So, the thing is, right, you can want to save the environment. It's a noble thing. It's a good thing. But right now, the cost of that has been people's ability to own the place in which they live. That has been one of the biggest factors in driving up costs. And that has all been by government fiat of, this is how you have to do it. So all of those things come together to make this environment. Plus now you tack tariffs that make any imported goods more expensive. So, if you have a domestic, like we have PGT windows here in Florida, I am betting PGT is going to have a very good year, and ES Windows that's in Colombia, who we used to get all of our windows from, they're going to have a very bad year this year as far as importing to the U.S., which is one of their major places they send stuff to. So
assuming they have the capability to deliver the demand, right?
This is the reason why when people ask me what you do right now, if I'm betting on the U.S. market, I'm buying industrial. I'm buying industrial land and I'm shortening my position on warehouse because export import requires more warehousing than a domestic production does. So I think warehouse is going to be okay. We're still going to need quite a bit of it, but we're not going to be buying as much, bringing as much in or sending as much out. That being said, also, I feel like, and I may be wrong, but I feel like this is all going to be a relatively short-term thing. I think that.
Well, you do see tariffs being negotiated right now, dropped right front and center. Yeah. So they have to. Otherwise, everybody's killing everyone at the same time, and nobody survives this one. In your experience, what separates people who build real wealth in challenging markets like this one from those who let fear or short-term thinking run the show?
It really is fear. Fear is a paralytic drug. So recognizing that however bad everybody says it is, it's not that bad. And however good anybody says it is, it's not that good. You can't listen to anybody. You have to go back to the data. So right now, I'm actually wading into the market because I'm seeing my supply timelines are getting closer to a balanced market. Now, so one of the things that you mentioned, and it's true, time on market is up. It's almost back to what it was in 2019. Like we're almost back to, and most of mine in the US, we're almost back to what we were in the last time we saw normalcy. And I have, you ready for that? I don't know if you know this statistic. It's actually a third of all agents that exist in real estate in the US were licensed since COVID. So they've never seen a normal market. So they're used to, well, Josh, I put the house in the market last week and we haven't gotten any offers. I'm like, okay, that's Tuesday. I mean, that's what normal. I mean, like 4 months or less, it's still a seller's market. But people are freaking out. But I'm looking at the timelines. We're seeing stuff that's 100 days on market, 110 days on market. We're getting to a place where there's a little bit more normalcy. So there's going to be opportunities. So you got to be like the U.S. Marines is what I say. What do the U.S. Marines do? When everybody else is running away from a place, here go the Marines charging in to go fix the situation, right? You go in when everybody's coming out because that's where the opportunities lie. That's how I made it back everything that I lost. I lost everything in 2008, Elke, and I made it all back in the course of a few years by wading back in that market and going in hard. And stuff that I bought for $60,000, $80,000 is $300,000-$400,000 properties.
And discipline and not in living within your means, right?
All of that. Yeah. I didn't say because I felt like I had, but you're right. That discipline of, and you're right. I know that what you're saying is absolutely correct. And to reiterate it is important because it's hard for people. It's hard for me. I mean, I have that save for later in my Amazon cart. That is a terrible place because when I find myself doing nothing, I start looking at it and saying, is it now later? I mean, honestly, the Amazon app is such a problem. I don't have to get off my couch to order that thing that I want. It takes a split second of a breach in discipline for you to take and make the choices that have kept you where you are. And it's gotten easier and easier. You don't have to get up. I mean, you used to have to get up and go on your dial-up modem. Yeah. And you had time to talk yourself out of it. Now there's no time to talk. Oh, I bought it already.
Or Z, I'll return it later, and you never do.
Oh yeah. No, I totally did that with some jackets from Macy's the other day. I'm going to get these 6 and I'll send back the ones I don't want.
And then
Yep.
they must be a return policy and they're in your closet because you don't like them and they don't fit you properly, and then you can't return them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
I've been really good with that, actually. I've been good, but I do know cases where it hasn't been that great, and they have a lot of stuff. Anyway,
I
that's
know.
each
I
to their
know.
own. But okay, so in this world, in this market, and trying to avoid the victim mentality or the bad news that is constantly attacking us, how do you define stability in your own life when the market is anything but stable? Whether that's
Well,
business, money, family, what's your anchor?
I'm going to say one piece of advice to start with. I don't watch the news. I avoid the news like the plague. Um, I have some hyper political on both sides of the aisle guys that are in a chat. And so I just look at the articles they post back and forth. And I figure if I read both sets of articles, I'm pretty well in the middle. Yeah, I navigate my way through the nonsense because the statistics are just filthy, dirty statistics that people throw out there. They're totally designed to emotionally manipulate. So I do that, and I have certain business news websites that I go to that I just let the push notifications come to me. And if it's something that's on the markets that I care about, I'll look at that. But I realize the news is pure emotional manipulation. So I keep myself out of environments where I know I'm going to be emotionally manipulated. I try to read quite a bit. One of the best things that I would say for your audience, I know this may be a bit much, but start reading a few books on economics. Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell. It's a great book. Go back and read some of the old ones. Friedrich Hayek's was great. The Road to Serfdom. Milton Friedman is great. Any of those guys, just read and see what they had to say, right? Because the reason why those names are names that I even mentioned, they write in an approachable way enough. And one guy was writing in the 1930s and 40s, the Great Depression. So like they saw all that. And then the 70s with the embargoes and all that kind of stuff so you get to see this perspective across a broad swath of time to realize what you're seeing right now isn't all that much different than what they saw before. So doing that and then realizing that business and money are just part of life. I mean, money does give you the freedom to choose to do things in life, but recognizing, like, one of the things I remind myself of, no matter how it goes, is when I go home, my dog is still going to be happy to see me. And nothing has happened that's going to preclude my ability to sit in the floor and spend a few minutes with him. And he still thinks, no matter how good or bad my day is or what happened to me, that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. And so, making sure to do that, to prioritize the family, and making sure you set your systems up to allow you the freedom of your time to spend it with your people, your tribe, getting around people they're going to take and keep you bubble in the middle. If you start thinking too much of yourself, they'll smack you down. And if you think too little of yourself, they'll build you back up again. People that are invested in you. I think all of that is that. And then my own, like, very personal thing. I like to play board games in my spare time.
Oh, that's lovely. That's really nice.
It's a way to use my brain and hang out with people and not have the consequences of, oh, gee, you screwed up. Now you can't make payroll this week. So that's my life. Board games. So I lost. Who cares?
So tell me something. Discipline, going slow to go fast, control, reading, not just blindly believing.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any other secret recipe to your day that keeps you anchored?
One of the things I teach a lot on is time management. I don't believe in time blocking, which is a huge thing. And some folks swear by it and they're great at it. The folks that time block, they tell everybody like it's dogma. It's the only way to go. I do it to a limited extent. So I believe in being ruthless with my time, which means I make sure that time that doesn't matter, I spend as efficiently as I possibly can, making my phone calls, like, how do I do this so I get through all my stuff so that when it's an opportunity to hang out and talk to you, I don't have to be looking at my watch, right? Because I've done my other responsibilities. So having one place where I clearly have my responsibilities laid out helps me manage myself so that I can give myself the gift of my time back at the end of the day, knowing that I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. So that to me has been one of the best things that I've done to allow me to keep the bubble in the middle, allow me to truly enjoy my time with my friends, going to the gym or hanging out with my family or any of those things. Like I can fully do that and realize I've kept my commitments. And so, yeah, that's been a huge, huge relief.
That's incredible. Josh, thank you so much for breaking it so clearly and showing us that planning isn't about fear. It's about quality, control, protecting what matters most to you. Take the first step, get informed, reach out to the professionals, and most importantly, start thinking about what legacy you want now and how real estate can play or doesn't play or should play a role in your life. Because getting your house in order isn't just about reacting, it's about getting ready. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Elke.